The House of Tubes has very unique architecture. From the outside, it looks like a set of grey concrete tubes standing on end. On the inside, the hallways are cylindrical in shape. On one side of the building, a series of ramps lead up to the upper floors. On the other side, the levels are connected by large stairs. According to the legend, the house was built by a wealthy couple who had a daughter who was paralysed. The father wanted to create a special house that was custom made for disabled people. It was designed with ramps leading from one floor to another to allow her to move freely around the house in her wheelchair. The man hoped it would give his daughter the feeling that she wasn't disabled at all. When construction began, the young girl seemed really excited about the new home her family would be living in. She asked her father to take her to see the building. On the day the girl went to see the house, two of the architects who designed it suffered a terrible accident and were killed by falling concrete. The construction crew refused to continue working on it. The family managed to hire another group of builders to finish the house, and the girl wanted to go back to check on them. She was testing out the ramps, going up and down from one floor to the next. Her parents took her eyes off her for just a moment, and her wheelchair suddenly started to slide backwards down the ramp. She wasn't able to stop herself, and her wheelchair came hurling down the ramp, going much too fast. The poor girl went flying out the open window and fell to her death. Her grieving parents couldn't bear the thought of living in the property that had caused her daughter's death, so all construction was immediately stopped, never to resume again. Years later, the half-finished building was put on the market, but not a lot of buyers were interested. One wealthy family went to see the House of Tubes and brought their young son with them. While they surveyed the lower levels, the boy went upstairs alone to explore. A few minutes later, they heard their son screaming. When they looked up, they saw him struggling with the little girl. As they watched in horror, the girl grabbed their son and tossed him out of the window. The boy landed on the ground below with a sickening thud. The young girl was nowhere to be found. After this terrible tragedy, the authorities fenced off the land and it was no longer available to the public. They say the house is cursed and is haunted by the ghost of the two children that died there. It is said that, at night, the horrible sound of a young girl weeping can be heard, and the ghostly apparition of a young boy has been spotted playing in the entrance. Some people claim to have seen a young girl standing at the open window on one of the upper floors and waving at passers-by. In the small city of Yarao de Progreso in Mexico, there's a beautiful park called the Benito Juarez Park. It's one of the attractions of the city, but it's built near the remains of an old, forgotten cemetery, and there are some who say it's haunted. The city wanted to improve the park, so they placed nice benches and seats so that people could enjoy the scenery. They say that it disturbed the spirits of the dead and unleashed a deadly curse. Every night, the benches were vandalized, and nobody knew who was causing the damage. To protect the park benches against vandals, the city hired a security guard to patrol the grounds at night. One night, when the security guard was on duty, everything seemed normal until midnight, when a dense fog emerged and spread out across the park, and a cold wind began to blow. The guard heard the cries of a woman. They seemed to be coming from the other side of the park. He saw a shadowy figure lurking near the park benches. It looked like an old woman in a long white dress. Believing that she was up to no good, the guard followed her and saw her breaking and damaging the benches. When he got closer, he was horrified to see that she had no legs, and she was floating above the ground. All of a sudden, the woman attacked him and began to beat him fiercely. He managed to escape, and in the morning, still trembling, he told his boss what he had seen. Soon afterwards, the man was suddenly struck down with a mysterious illness. The doctors couldn't figure out what was wrong with him, and a few days later, he died. The city decided to hire another security guard to replace him. The same thing happened to him. One night, when the new guard was on patrol, he was confronted by a ghostly old woman. She rushed at him and began beating him furiously. Within days, the terrified man became seriously ill, but unlike the previous watchman, he managed to survive and eventually recovered. The doctors still couldn't explain what was going on with him, or what had caused it, All they knew was that it was the same as the disease that killed the previous watchman. City officials tried to hush it up and keep out of the newspapers, but eventually, word got around and no one was willing to stand guard at the park at night. The benches were still being vandalised, and the city just had to put up with it and keep repairing the damage. Ever since then, nobody goes near the park at night. They call the ghost the phantom of the park, and they say that if you come in contact with the ghost of the old woman, you'll be afflicted with a sudden illness that could end up causing your death. They say that, in Mexico, there's a scarlet red car that travels at night on the road between Mexico City and Cuernavaca. Usually, it's only seen by men who wander the lonely streets after dark. They call it the carriage of the witches. Inside the red car, there are 2 or 3 women. Sometimes there are as many as 5, and they're all very beautiful. When they see a man alone by the side of the road, they stop the car and try to entice him to get inside. They use sensual language, gestures, and promise that they will fulfill his dreams. If the man accepts their offer and gets into the red car, he is usually found sometime later, lying lifeless by the side of the road, his bruised and battered body covered with cuts and strange arcane symbols. It is obvious that he has been subjected to some dark occult ritual in which he has been sacrificed to the devil. Some say that the scarlet lining of the red car is made from the blood of the victims.